Alright, what is up, everybody? I was going to do a video. I want to talk a little bit about Marvel Rivals, kind of my thoughts on it in Season 1 here. We're, I think, a little over 3 weeks into Season 1, and I haven't really done a video fully discussing the game as a whole, so I figured why not. I'm going to kind of do a good, the bad, and the ugly with this game and sort of my view on it and stuff. So I guess we'll start off with the good stuff. I'm going to be openly honest. This is probably the most fun I've had with an FPS game in a while. I've had more fun in the last month and a half playing this game than I've had playing Overwatch the last probably 5 years. There is things about this game that definitely kind of bring me back a little bit to the original Overwatch. And there are some things that do give me that sort of 2017, 2018 sort of Overwatch feel. And one of the things that I actually really like about this game is its general hero design. And I like basically the sort of comic book aesthetic to the game. I think generally a lot of the heroes in this game are really, really cool visually. I think they're very accurate to the source material, which is obviously Marvel Comics. And, I generally enjoy the cast of this game, and I'm excited to see kind of where they go going forward. I know we're supposed to get the other two Fantastic Four characters, but just the number of possibilities because it's a Marvel game is really cool. And I'm excited to see kind of going forward what we get. I really like the 6v6 format. I've really not enjoyed 5v5 in Overwatch 2 for quite a while. I've kind of felt that 5v5 doesn't really feel right, especially to me. The solo tank part has not felt particularly good. I think the asymmetrical sort of balance they've tried with 5v5 and Overwatch 2 just hasn't worked and hasn't felt right. It's either kind of been in a situation where the tank is too good, or the tank category, it feels like shit and not really anywhere in between. So what I like about this game being 6v6 is that I think in general, I think playing tank in this game is far more enjoyable than it was in Overwatch 2 personally. And that's a big bonus. That's as somebody who is primary. I mean, I would say I'm a flex player in this game especially, but I do like tank, and that's kind of my main role, I would say. But I do flex to other roles. I do think tank generally is more fun in this game than it was in Overwatch 2, which I think is good. And it's just in general, tank I think is just less frustrating to play, which is a good thing. I've genuinely been, I genuinely enjoy sort of the very frenetic pace of this game as well. I would say a big upside this game has is I don't think this game has a ton of CC in it. I think there is some crowd control, and I think you have to have a little bit, but what I've really noticed is that this game doesn't have as much CC as Overwatch does, or especially later in Overwatch 1, it kind of got to a point where CC was very oppressive. There's just a lot less moments in this game where you get stunned for very long periods of time and basically can't do anything, and you're just guaranteed dead. So I think that's definitely a big improvement. I genuinely, and I know this is probably controversial, but I like the third-person view personally. I think the one thing I really like about it is sort of the fact that because it's third person, you get to see your cosmetics first, on your character, which is nice. And I'm a fan of that, especially if you buy cosmetics. You actually want to see the cosmetic versus, only other people being able to see it. So I actually kind of like the third-person view. I know for some people they don't necessarily like it because they feel it makes the game either less competitive or it makes the game just easier. And I kind of understand that to an extent, but, personally, I think it also helps with with my spatial awareness, kind of noticing when someone's behind me, or knowing when I'm backing up into something or whatever, right? So for me, I think that's also a very good thing. But I know that definitely is a bit more controversial. The general gameplay, I would say, is fun. I think that's definitely important. I mean, fun factor is an important thing in this game. I think it does have a fun factor to it. It's definitely fast paced, definitely frenetic. You don't have to wait long for games. I think the other thing I'm going to say that I do like is I think the team ups are a pretty cool idea. It's probably the most unique mechanic this game has in terms of being able to kind of mix characters together to get special abilities. I think that's kind of a cool idea. It's something that Overwatch has never done. And it also kind of makes sense regarding it being a Marvel game, and obviously having certain characters team up kind of makes sense lore-wise and stuff and whatever. I'm not a big Marvel fan, but I think it's a cool idea and actually kind of an interesting addition. Now, regarding the balancing of some of these team ups, we'll talk about later, but I think it's a cool idea, and I genuinely do like it. It's not perfect for sure, and we'll talk about it later, but I think it's a very, very cool idea, and such. So, I'm trying to think. I think that's probably the main good things. Obviously, I think the bad and the ugly part are going to be a bit longer, not because I dislike the game, but more because I think I can explain what I dislike and more thoroughly, which I think will just take longer. For me, it's like the good things in this game. I don't think I have to really sit and explain them that much. Whereas I think the other things I think will take a bit longer. So I guess we'll start. We'll start with the. We'll go to bad and then we'll do ugly. So first things first with the bad part. This game's netcode has major issues. To me, like, I live in Minnesota, in the United States, so I don't necessarily have a server that's like super close to me. So I'm consistently always on 70 ping or more, but this game consistently, for whatever reason, I constantly experience packet loss. I mean, you could probably have seen it if you're just watching the video and such. Like, I have, my packet loss on the right there. I'm getting like little chunks of packet loss and packet burst occasionally. This game consistently has connection issues, and it makes it feel really inconsistent, especially when it comes to like hit detection and stuff. There's lots of no-regging, lots of situations where I feel like I shoot somebody dead on and they take no damage. And considering some characters in this game can be very hard to kill at times, it's very frustrating when certain people get away when they shouldn't, be due to bad hit reg or packet burst or whatever, and packet loss. This game's servers are really mediocre, and I think that can lead to some frustration for sure. So that's probably the first thing. I think I guess some of the bad we'll cover is also going to be balance related things, or just sort of game philosophy things I don't necessarily agree with. So I guess we'll get into that. So first off, in terms of game philosophy, one thing about this game I'll say that I'm worried about the future in terms of is when it comes to the way they balance some of these characters and their sort of general philosophy on balance. They're kind of doing a similar thing to what Blizzard did with Overwatch, where they continuously buff things like crazy over time. They continually buff a majority of the cast up and up, and a big issue in Overwatch was power creep. I mean, if you look at how different like 2017 Overwatch was from like 2021, it was crazy. Like, just the difference in healing numbers, damage numbers. I mean, the game, it's weird because it's like healing went up, but damage also went up, but health in general also went up. I mean, we saw this in Overwatch 2, and I think it almost kind of watered the game down in a way. I think the game felt best gameplay-wise early on when there was less CC. It was probably a little more, maybe it was a little more mechanically demanding, but I also think there was a lot more freedom of movement. And you didn't feel like you'd be punished for playing aggressively as long as you were smart and didn't, position badly. Whereas I feel like as time went on, and I'm kind of worried about this in this game. I'm kind of worried about this game going in the same direction because, to me, I personally don't think the Season 1 patch was very good. I think it kind of encouraged certain things. There's a lot of changes that I personally just did not understand or thought were very, very weird. And I get they're looking at data, but I think the problem with data is sometimes it's very misleading because, one, trying to balance around every rank is kind of impossible. Now, I know they have hero bans, and we'll get into hero bans in a little bit, but I think trying to balance around every rank is going to be nearly impossible to do. I think data can sometimes be very difficult to sort of interpret because it's like, okay, if a character has a high pick rate but an average win rate, does that mean the character is really liked? Does that mean the character is not doing that well actually? Or is it because they have a high pick rate, that's why their win rate is lower? It can be very difficult to interpret data like that. To me, I almost think you need to look at statistical things in terms of how these characters work compared to other characters. You almost need to balance them relative to each other, not relative to data, because to me, data is going to be misleading. And it's not necessarily, data's not going to necessarily tell you what to change. Because a lot of these balance changes, at least with the first season of this game, were like changes that just didn't make a lot of sense relative to like what people were considering problematic on some characters and such. And I'll actually go through some of the changes here. So we'll do display capture, and I'll pull up the patch notes here. But so, I mean, some of these changes were fine. Like, I didn't mind the Captain America buffs. Strange getting nerfed was fine, even though I don't feel like it did a whole lot to him, but I think it's fine. To be honest, I don't think Tank needs to be nerfed heavily or anything. Tank, I think is probably the weakest role currently, but not by a crazy margin. I think Tank is fine. I actually kind of wish they would bring the other two roles down to the Tank role's power. I think that would feel better than trying to bring Tank up. But Thor buffs, those were fine. I didn't really agree with the Hulk nerf personally. The thing with Hulk is the biggest reason his pick rate was very high was because of the team up, and I don't think this is taking that into account really. They just nerfed his shield, but to me it's like I don't think Hulk needed to be nerfed. Hulk on his own was, I think, fine last patch. Venom buffs is okay. Panther getting nerfed was a little weird. To me, I don't think there was a ton of people who played Panther at extremely high level. This seems like it was kind of a nerf based on high-ranked Panther players, not necessarily the majority of the player base, so I was kind of on that change. Black Widow, unfortunately, I mean, she got buffed, but I don't think it really helped her. The issue with Black Widow is that she basically, because she doesn't one-shot to the head on anybody other than Bruce Banner, she basically, I don't think will ever be a really good character unless she can one-shot, but then the problem is if she can one-shot, then she might become oppressive at high ranks. Now, you could just hero Banner, but the issue right now is, and this is something I've noticed in Season 1, is that there's enough over-tuned characters that there's not enough bans for all of them. So it basically, what's often going to happen is even if you ban 4 separate characters, there's still going to be multiple over-tuned characters that are playable, and you honestly just can't do anything about that. So, I've said this before, I think Black Widow may be the only, and this would be risky, but the only way to buff her would make it so she could maybe one-hit maybe 250 HP characters or something. But anybody that has more than 250 health would survive. That way, she one-shots maybe half the cast, but the other half don't, so then there's maybe some counterplay as to who you could swap to survive. I don't know. It's risky, though, and to be honest, I'm not against her remaining kind of meh, just because I think the game is better when there's not one shots. But it's kind of up to interpretation. Um, the Hawkeye change actually was probably the best change of the patch. This basically reduced the range in which he could get a one-hit headshot from 60 meters to 40, which means he has to be at least a bit closer to be a real threat. So they made him a little easier to kill. I actually think this was probably the best change of the patch because Hawkeye was very obnoxious last patch, and he's still a bit annoying, but not as bad as he was. Now, I definitely think he's still strong, and I think people underrate him simply because there's just so many other overbuffed characters. Um, but yeah, but like this is an example of kind of what I'm worried about, right? So Hela is still very powerful, and all they really did is they reduced her health by 25, and I think they reduced her seasonal boost by 5%. And we'll get into seasonal boosts as well, and as to why I don't personally like the system. So they gave Magic an ultimate buff. That's okay, I guess. Moon Knight, and this is a big issue. So in a vacuum, right? This is fine. The issue is this ability is actually bugged. So I think if these were the only changes that went through, I think Moon Knight would be fine. The issue is right now his ult is bugged and is doing 2 times the damage it's supposed to do. So each of the talons is supposed to do 75 damage. Right now they're doing 150. So they're doing way more damage than they're supposed to. That's allowing you to blow up basically everything. And I think at the moment, the Groot Moon Knight combo, you basically have to use double support ultimates to not get just erased by it. And they have not fixed it. It's been over 3 weeks. They have not fixed it. They have not disabled Moon Knight because he's bugged. I mean, to me, even Blizzard would change this, right? Like, even Blizzard would either fix it or they would disable Moon Knight from ranked. And to be honest, he should be currently disabled, in my opinion, with how he is. But they haven't done anything, and they haven't even, I don't believe, have even addressed that this is a problem. So I don't know if they don't know this or if they haven't, just aren't paying attention or what's going on. But there hasn't been any... They basically haven't hotfixed this. So to me, it's like if they don't know how to fix it, they need to at least disable him until they can figure it out or something. Because to me, I think a lot of people are probably getting frustrated by just getting erased by an ult that all you have to do is press Q, and it's just way too strong. So yeah, that's the way they've handled that. Moon Knight's bug has not really been very good. This is kind of what I'm worried about as well. So they basically buffed Namor. Now, I'm fine with this, but we're going to get into it later. They buffed Namor's team up with Luna Snow, which I felt was already fine. This is what I'm worried about, is them buffing characters that are already good. Like, buffing characters that are already, like, A tier. To me, it's like people consistently have this sort of viewpoint that if something is not meta, it's shit, and that's not necessarily the case. Often meta characters are the characters that are overpowered in most games. That's usually what the meta is finding the most overperforming thing and using it. That's what metas usually dissolve into. So the idea that anything that isn't meta being shit is just not true. And to me, Namor was good last patch. Now he's even better, and he's like fringe S tier at this point. He's very strong. To me, he's another character that just didn't need a buff, and we're gonna see this. We're gonna see more of this going down. So Psylocke, they basically give you some counterplay against that. That's fine. The Punisher, decreasing the spread on both weapons. This is a character that I think right now this change is probably okay, but we're going to get into the seasonal boosts and kind of talk about why, if you lumped a seasonal boost on top of Punisher plus this, he might be crazy. He's probably like A tier right now. If you gave him, I mean, we'll get into it later, but yeah. So this is, to me, it's okay right now, but I'm a little worried about this in the future. Scarlet Witch, okay, I think this is actually fine because she needed some sort of buff. Storm, this is a character they massively over buffed. simply, I mean, I think the biggest change, to be honest, in my opinion, is that um, I think it was this change that probably put her over the top. Increasing the speed of her projectiles is what made her very, very strong. Um, that was probably to me what over made her become basically the strongest DPS, or probably top two. They just gave her too much here, I think. She wasn't horrendous before. The issue for to me it was with her mobility. It wasn't even necessarily that her damage was bad. It was just that she was very easy to counter. And instead they just kind of buffed her damage, which I think was already fine. It's just like they buffed her damage and then gave her more survivability in her ult, and her ult was not bad either. Like her ult was actually good. It was just like they kind of buffed the wrong things, and I think Storm now is probably a bit overtuned. Squirrel Girl, they made her a bit better. They actually just buffed her ultimate basically, but then in change made it easier to kill. I think Squirrel Girl's in a pretty decent spot. She's actually a threat now, which is good. Winter Soldier. Projectile damage, area damage, increased base health. I think Bucky is probably in a pretty good spot right now. I think he's definitely strong, but I don't think he's overpowered. That change was fine. Here's another character that I think they kind of jumped the gun on. Wolverine should not have gotten buffed. He was very good last patch. I think it just took a little time for people to learn how to play him because he's kind of abnormal in how he plays. Yeah, character they should not have buffed. Here's another character they should not have buffed. Cloak and Dagger had a pretty decent win rate last patch. Again, this is one of those characters that just because she wasn't meta, they buffed her for some reason. And you kind of see this. You know, you got these characters that are not necessarily bad, but because they're not, like, absolutely top tier, they're, like, getting buffed for whatever reason. I think I'm getting kicked out of the practice range. But back to the changes. So, they didn't fix Luna Snow, really. Her ult is still way too good. Mantis. This was probably a bigger nerf. They buffed Rocket. I think that's probably okay. But, yeah, so they toned down some of these season bonuses. But here they, like, buffed a team up that I think was already pretty solid. This team up was already very good as well. I don't think it needed to be buffed. So we got two buffs here that I don't think were necessary. Otherwise, here's the thing. Like, they also buffed this after buffing Storm, like, a lot. I don't know, man. I don't know if Storm needed even more damage. To be fair, people don't really play Captain America and Thor together, like so it's not a big deal, but yeah. And this is gonna kind of tie into my thoughts on the team ups. So I like the team ups as an idea. I think they're kind of cool. But what I will say is I do think one change that would be good for the team up is I think you should require players to, if they want the bonus from the team up, they should have to play all of the characters in the team up. So if it's a 3-man team up, they should have to play all 3 characters. To me, being able to just kind of get away with playing the anchor and then the meta character that's tied to the anchor is a little weird. Like, for example, you could play Hela and Loki, and because Hela's the anchor and Loki's the meta support, you just play those two, and you don't really play Thor. Not because Thor is necessarily bad. I think Thor is solid. It's just like you'd rather play a meta tank with those two characters than play Thor, who's weaker, even if though he gets, you know, the bonus of being able to be rezzed. You know, maybe the res does make him more attractive, but it doesn't necessarily make him better than, like, the best tank, especially considering, in some cases, you're almost better off running, in a lot of cases, like, multiple team-ups. You know, running, like, for example, 3 2-man team-ups versus running maybe 2 3-man team-ups. You'd almost rather have the multiple team-ups at once, because power-wise, I think that's stronger. So to me, I'd almost prefer if you had to run the entire team-up Uh, at least to get the abilities and probably, I mean, at least to get the season bonus. Now, we're going to talk about seasonal bonus and kind of why I personally don't like it. So basically, it's this system where the anchor for every team up gets a bonus. Now, with how it works, the DPS often get 15%. I think pretty much all of them get 15% as is at the moment, although Storm actually doesn't. I don't know why they list her with a team up icon, I guess. But 15% on Hela, 15% on Magic, 15% Hawkeye. For whatever reason, Scarlet Witch gets 10. 10 for Spider-Man. But I kind of wish they would do away with this in general. With the tanks, it's often 150 health. And with the supports, it's basically 15% healing. A big reason that I want to do away with this, and I get they're trying to encourage people to play team-ups, but you don't have to play a team-up currently. Basically, with how the game works is you get this. If you just play the character, you get the season bonus for just playing the character. And personally, I think with how the game is currently, I think alts generate too fast. 2, I think there's too much healing and too much damage. And 3, you're not actually, in a way, encouraging team-ups. You're kind of just encouraging people to play, like, characters that have a seasonal boost, and then if the team-up's really strong, then, okay, maybe you play the one other character to get the more meta character to get the team-up, right? So, for example, here, it's like, okay, just play Thor and Storm then, right? And leave Captain America out, because he's probably the weakest tank at the moment, so why would you play him? Just play Storm and Thor, and then play, Magneto or Strange, right? It's like, with the way the system works right now, I would kind of prefer if they got rid of all the seasonal boosts. So, 1, it would make tanks easier to kill. 2, it would reduce the healing output. And 3, it would reduce damage. So that would basically slow down ults in general, ult charge a little bit. It would make it take a little longer to get ults. Not by a lot. I think, again, it'd be around 15% or so, maybe 15 to 20% slower. I don't think that would be so dramatic that it would make the game feel way slower paced. It just would prevent people, because I think a big issue right now is there's some ults that people are generating every fight. There's some ultimates that they charge so fast that if the fight goes for more than, like, 30 to 45 seconds, if it goes for like 45 seconds, which I'm going to get into the triple support meta, but with the way some of these fights are, if they drag out like 45 seconds, there's players using 2 ults in a 45-second fight. And that just to me, that doesn't feel right. To me, it kind of discourages good ult use when you can just generate them so fast. And to me, I don't think this would substantially I know some people are worried about them reducing the TTK heavily back to like Overwatch levels, and this wouldn't do that. The other thing with seasonal boost to me is there's some characters that don't have them right now that I'm very worried once they get a seasonal boost that they're going to be crazy. For example, Punisher. I mean, so there's a couple characters. Imagine Punisher with 15% damage boost with Rocket team up. That would be insane. That's going to be insane. If that happens, he will be insane. Now, obviously, it's one of those things where, he would have to be an anchor for a team-up. But to me, it's like, I don't believe they're going to get rid of team-ups. I think they're just going to add more of them. So is it going to get to a point where everybody has damage boost? I mean, I'm just worried about the power creep of this game, right? There's some characters right now. Imagine Iron Man with 15% damage boost plus gamma charge, which is already crazy. Imagine Bucky with 15% more damage. Imagine Star-Lord with 15% more damage. Imagine Namor with 15% more damage. Like, Wolverine with 15%. Like, some of these characters are going to be insane if they ever get a damage boost. If Moon Knight gets a 15% damage boost, Squirrel Girl. I mean, 15% damage boost on Black Widow would probably allow her to start one-shotting people. I'm just worried about some of this stuff. Some of these healers that don't currently have it. Loki. Imagine Loki with 15% more healing. That would be insane. He already heals a ton. He's already, like, the second strongest support. They already overbuffed some of these characters. Imagine him with more healing. Imagine Mantis with 15% more healing. She'd be quite strong. So it's like, Imagine Magneto or Strange, who have shields with 150 more HP. They're going to be much harder to kill. Good luck killing Magneto if he has 800 HP and he has bubbles and a shield. It's just like, to me, that's kind of the worry, is that where does this system stop? It's a slippery slope. And I just don't like it personally. I don't think you have to have it. Here's the thing. I think you could either remove it, or if you want to compromise and keep the system, I think you should at least require a full team up to get the seasonal boost. I think you should require a full team up to get the abilities, and you should require a full team up in order to get the seasonal boost. I think it makes sense because, let's be honest, so the characters that often require are usually a 2-man boost. They get 10%, but the 3-man, it's 15. The other thing is then you have to actually commit to a composition, which I think is good. And I think that'll encourage people. On top of the fact that some of these team-ups are so powerful, I think you need to make people commit, because being able to get away with having, these multiple... some of these 3-man team-up abilities are extremely powerful, and being able to run, 3 of them on one team at a time is kind of crazy, if you think about it. So, it is a little crazy, in my opinion. So I guess next up, another thing I wanted to address is kind of the meta and why I don't think I think it's very, very unhealthy for the game currently. And again, I've already kind of addressed some of what I think would help. Obviously, less healing, slower ult charge. But I think there's some ultimates in this game, in particular support ults, that probably need some slight duration reductions. I know the first one is probably Luna Snow. Right now, her ult is, I believe, 12 seconds. Hold on, let me use it just to make sure. Yeah, it's basically 12, 13 seconds. Yeah, the only way to punch through it is with a one-shot ability. This ult simply lasts too long. I think, personally, I would prefer if it's more in line with these DPS ultimates, at least in duration. So I think Punisher ult lasts about 10 seconds, right? Maybe 11 seconds. So to me, I think... Oh my god, what the heck? I didn't realize there's a rocket launcher that auto shoots at targets too. So on average, I think the longest DPS ultimates last maybe 10 seconds. Let's see. Lasts about 6 seconds. It does a ton of damage. Actually, here's what I would say. So I think Mantis ult lasts about 9 seconds. I think if they reduced the length of Cloak and Dagger's ultimate, reduce the length of Luna's ultimate, basically just standardize it so they all last the same amount of time. And in that sense, that would also nerf Loki's ultimate, because he copies the other support's ults usually. I think that would be a good change. Just reducing the duration of these ultimates so they don't last so long and stall out fights for so long. That would be good. Like I've said, I think getting rid of the seasonal boost so the healing output of some of these characters is reduced a little bit. That would help fights go a little bit quicker, because I see a lot of people constantly complain, about fights lasting too long, but then I say, okay, what if we get rid of the seasonal boost? And then they say, oh, but that would make the game... That would slow the game down. I don't agree. I think right now the game has been slowed down by the way it currently plays in this sort of triple support meta. And it's not that triple support is unbeatable, but it's more of that it's unfun. I think you can definitely beat it with specific characters and stuff. It's just kind of annoying that you have to play a specific cast just to beat a composition. And I think it limits your options and stuff. And it's honestly just not enjoyable. Triple support versus triple support is just very boring. The fights last a long time. You feel like you just don't get a lot of value. You spend a lot of time shooting shit that doesn't do anything. It feels bad. It feels like GOAT's meta from Overwatch a little bit. It basically kind of is. in essence, like GOAT's meta. So to me, it's like you get rid of seasonal boost. I think that would immediately help. I think you at least require a full team up in order to get the abilities or also to get the seasonal boost. I would kind of prefer if the seasonal boost was reduced even further. So I think what I would do is if it's a 2-man team up, it would only be 5%. If it's a 3-man team up, I'd reduce it even further from 15 to 10. Um, you could do that. There's a lot of things you could do, to be honest, but something needs to be done because I feel like this system over time is just going to get worse and worse. Uh, I feel like I don't want to go down the power creep rabbit hole. I'm very worried about that. So I think it would be very smart to do something about it going forward. And such, because to me right now, with the way the game is currently, I don't want the time to kill to get any faster. I don't really want healing to get any stronger. I don't really want tanks to get more durable. I'm just worried about like where are we going with this, right? I think over time I'm just worried about what the future could hold. Because I don't believe NetEase is willing to actually tone down stuff significantly that is way too strong. I mean, we saw how gentle they were with Hela, who was like the strongest hit scan and like strongest DPS in the game last patch, and they barely touched her, and she's still very strong. So, I don't know, man. Just a bit worried about that, I suppose, is how I would look at it. And some of these characters, they buffed before people even figured out how to play them. So, yeah. The other thing regarding hero bans, I would like to see hero bans available at more ranks. I'd probably move it down to at least gold. Right now, there's very few players in diamond and above. I think it's only 5% of the community is even experiencing hero bans. So I would like that system to be more widespread. On top of the fact that I think once they add the next 2 characters in, I would like to see an additional ban on each side, so 6 bans total. I would also like to see them make a system where each team takes turns banning, so we don't have situations where teams ban the same character, because it's kind of like, what's the point of having bans if both teams ban the same character? You're just losing out on a ban. So I'd like to see that. That's sort of how it works in the competitive part of this game, although there is a protect phase. Where you can protect a character, but in competitive they take in tournaments and stuff they take turns banning. So I would like to see that kind of move to the ranked mode, at least regarding the ranked mode. And we'll get into I suppose we'll hop into the ugly now. So we're gonna talk about the ranked mode, and not everything is bad about the ranked mode, but I like the hero bans, but the idea, I don't really agree with this idea of starting everyone at bronze 3. I don't think it creates like very good games. It makes smurfing extremely problematic and very powerful because you're starting at the bottom. To me, not having some sort of placement system like Overwatch didn't make a lot of sense to me. Because especially in bronze, I was basically running over everybody, and I was basically high plat, low diamond in Overwatch, so I was basically crushing everybody in bronze rank. I was by far the strongest player, and it felt weird because it's like I just shouldn't be here. On top of the fact that the Chrono Shield basically keeps you from losing MMR. It's like very easy to climb, and maybe even too easy in some cases, but I think having placement matches would be good. I think they reset people's ranks too much. 7 divisions was kind of insane. I would have maybe only done 3. Making somebody go from gold 1 to bronze 3 is kind of crazy to me. It just creates these really unbalanced games, especially at the beginning of the season for like the first week or 2. So I don't really like that. The other thing, I mean, I've kind of said it before, I'd like to see hero bans move down a little bit to so you start getting hero bans in gold. I think gold players can handle it. I think that would be good. I guess the last topic I want to discuss, because I'm going to try not to make this video longer than like 45 minutes, and we're almost pushing 40 minutes here. I guess the last topic I want to discuss, I guess it's 2 things. It's sort of, I actually don't mind the monetization system in this game, although I will say I think the skins are too expensive, but whatever. I don't mind the battle pass the way it works. I think it's better than Overwatch, or at least similar to Overwatch. But I think personally, I actually do like the cosmetics in this game, and I think they do give you opportunities to earn them through playing the game, which is good. Overwatch didn't really do that, at least Overwatch 2. So that's good. And I don't mind the challenge system and stuff, and being able to do it against bots is really cool. So you don't have to play characters you don't want to play in regular games. You can go to a bot game and grind challenges. So we got through that. So I'm going to talk. The last thing I want to talk about, and to me, this is probably the most worrying thing in this entire game, actually. And to me, I think this is the biggest thing that will kill the casual community of this game over the long term. It is the EOMM that is in the quick play. The quick play in this game very clearly has engagement optimized matchmaking. I've played enough quick play to sort of notice it and sort of notice the win and loss streaks that occur. I've tried to play it with friends, and a big issue is and this is an issue with EOMM in general, but EOMM really struggles when it comes to like playing with people. If you're playing in a party with people of different skill levels, EOMM really struggles to find games that are even remotely fair or feel even remotely fair. And often what happens is especially in a party, you get these really drastic swings in who you're playing against. So one game it's a lot of either stomping the other team or getting stomped, and it's very uncommon to have extremely close games. They do happen sometimes, but I don't think they happen that often where the game is extremely close, especially when you're playing in a party with friends and friends that are not similar skill levels. So, I've kind of said this before, but I feel like, okay, let's go quick match. So look at my win-loss, 20 and 19, 5.6 hours played. So I've played about 40 games of quick play. I mean, look at my competitive. I'm 15 and 2 in ranked. 15 and 2 in ranked with 3 hours played. I play quick match. I'm 20 and 19. And I've had lots of wins and loss streaks. I've had one game we easily win. The next game it's way harder, and I look at the ranks on the other team, and they're all significantly higher than my team. The next game we're only playing against people who haven't played any ranked, so they're bronze 3. It's been extremely inconsistent because of EOMM, and this system just does not need to be in the game. I'll be completely honest. There's two things you can do. Either put skill-based matchmaking in the pubs, which I wouldn't love, but I think it would still be better than this system. Or like the SBMM, I would just take basically the same matchmaking that ranked uses. Use your hidden MMR, which clearly this game has a hidden MMR system that we don't know about, but it clearly does. That's what it's using to matchmake. Either put SBMM in the game, in the quick play, or I think the other thing you could do is basically just get rid of it and not have an MMR system in the regular quick play. And I know some people would really not like that. Personally, I think if there's enough people playing, I don't think we would get that. I think, honestly, you wouldn't get that many lopsided matches. I think you would get some, but I think, and this goes back to the old SBMM versus no SBMM debate, but you could do that. I think that would be an option. I think that's the less likely, so I would say SBMM would probably make more sense. Just put that in the quick play. Whatever. I don't like it, but I've kind of had to accept that that's how it is nowadays. There's not really a difference between ranked and quick play. It's really just practice ranked, so whatever. I'm not going to get into the whole dynamics of that because that's its own thing, and I'm not really going to talk about open queue versus roll queue in this. I've said before, like, I guess the one point I will make is that I have advocated for roll queue but not roll lock, and what I've said personally is that I would like to see a roll queue system where there's 4 roles, being DPS, support, tank, and then flex. And flex is sort of like you're allowed to switch between roles during the match. And what I would do is basically make it so you're guaranteed to have two support players, you're guaranteed to have a tank player, and you're guaranteed to have a DPS player. And then the other two players on the team are flex, and they can sort of play whatever. So you'll have the opportunity to play some different compositions. But it's one of those things where you won't maybe be able to play like the six supports. Now, I think, of course, open queue should always be an option. You should always be able to play that. And that either needs to be a side mode or always be in the arcade or whatever, like Overwatch. But I don't believe, personally, this game needs a 2-2-2 roll lock or anything, even though I do feel that it plays the best in 2-2-2. So, I'm not going to go further into that. That's like a separate commentary, but that's probably about it. That's kind of all I want to talk about for now with Marvel Rivals. Hopefully, the mid-season patch we get in a couple of weeks here is good. Hopefully, some of these issues are at least addressed. Because personally, I think even like the honeymoon phase for me has worn off. I think a lot of people still are in the phase, but I think once that wears off, I'm a little worried about this game's future. Just because I think there's some gameplay design problems that I think might over time drive people away from the game. And also the EOMM and the matchmaking has me very worried, because every game that has it basically is over time falling off a cliff. Look at Call of Duty, Apex Legends, all that. So, in conclusion, this game is fun. I think it is worth a try. If you're somebody that liked Overwatch in the past, I think it's worth giving it a go just to see if you like it or not. You might not. You might like it, whatever. I had to give it a chance. I didn't know initially if I would like it, but I'll probably play it for a little longer. We'll see in the coming months if they can address some of this stuff. I think long term, if they aren't able to, I probably will move on from this game. But for now, I'm willing to give it a go in the near, at least for the next few months and stuff. And we'll see how next season is and everything. But thank you all for listening to me ramble like an idiot. And I will see you all when I see ya. Bye-bye.